Hi, when I went shopping this morning, I came across this colorful fruit pie. I'm not going to eat it now, but I just show it because it reminds me of the so-called causal pie model. This model was introduced by Ken Rothman, an American epidemiologist. It helps me a lot when thinking about disease risk. Imagine that this pie represents just one heart attack, and that these pies represent 2 heart attacks. Let me explain that to you. The letters in the pies are different risk factors, which what Rothman calls component causes. These components need each other, and when they all come together, they create a sufficient cause for a heart attack. Each component in a pie is needed for the full 100%. With an incomplete pie, the heart attack cannot occur. Heart attack 1 results from A, B and C. Heart attack 2 from A, D and E. And heart attack 3 from B, E and C. It's all about sets of risk factors that differ between individuals. I want to illustrate that with 3 70-year-old patients who all suffered a heart attack. Here's Mrs. Jones, who never smoked, is obese and eats fruit and vegetables every day. Here's Mr. Smith, who has smoked since he was 12, is lean and never eats fruit and vegetables. Mr. Brown sometimes smokes a cigar, is a bit overweight and sometimes eats fruit and vegetables. We are dealing here with 3 modifiable risk factors: smoking, obesity and a low intake of fruit and vegetables. How much did these risk factors contribute to the overall risk of heart attack? Well, it's tempting to say that smoking is the bad guy because of Mr. Smith. But what about Mrs. Jones, who never smoked? For the same reason, it's difficult to blame obesity or eating too little fruit and vegetables. This is just a simple example to illustrate the complex interplay of different risk factors. In reality, people are exposed to many more risk factors: alcohol, salt, stress, you name it. Our 3 patients had a heart attack for different reasons, as indicated by this collection of pies. Each complete pie causes disease, and the colored pieces are the risk factors. And as you can see, the patients also have a risk factor in common. But all our 3 patients composed their own unique pie during life, and when it was completed, the heart attack occurred. In prevention and treatment, we do our best to postpone completion of the pie. Disease prevention only works when we intervene on causal risk factors, for example, blood pressure and LDL cholesterol. Patients who receive medication that lowers these risk factors have significantly fewer heart attacks than patients who receive placebo treatment. That has been shown in well-controlled clinical trials. Obesity is also a causal factor. When people lose weight, their risk of type 2 diabetes goes down. Not all risk factors are causal. On the path towards cardiometabolic disease, we can see many things happening. Some biological factors change as a consequence of the disease process, rather than having a causal effect. And others are just innocent bystanders that are somehow linked to the causal factor. Have you ever seen yellow fingers in heavy smokers? Well, these yellow fingers are definitely an indicator of disease risk, but washing them clean does not prevent any heart attacks. This sounds very logical, but in science it can be a hard job to find out which associations are causal. Factors that are debated for causality are, for example, HDL cholesterol and C-reactive protein. These factors are significantly related to heart disease, but may not be part of the causal pie. We call them risk markers. Causal risk factors that are involved in the etiology of disease are important targets for prevention, at least when they are modifiable. Risk markers are not good targets for prevention, but they are very useful for the prediction of disease. In prevention, don't forget the pie model. Risk factors act in concert to cause disease. That's why some of you may have a granddad who ate an unhealthy diet and smoked, and yet lived to a ripe old age. It's all about risk, and the granddad was lucky enough not to complete his pie. If he had 100 friends, and half of them lived like him, while the other half had healthy lifestyles, the sensible friends would, on average, live longer lives. In epidemiologic research, a large population is studied as one big average individual, while in fact it is a collection of many different individuals with different pies. Public health workers are happy with small shifts in risk factor distributions in the population. But for doctors and patients, however, the individual pie is important for optimal treatment and benefit. Do you feel some conflict there? I hope this clip refines your thinking about risk factors for cardiometabolic disease. Whenever you see a pie like this, I hope it reminds you of today's lesson.